The Game Awards is meaningless. Well, it means a lot to marketers, because it's advertising. It's primarily a showcase for game announcements and trailers. And of course, if your game is up for an award or wins one, you may see a boost in sales. So yeah, there's big money spent on it. But pitting games released in the past 12 months against each other to decide which one is best? That's dumb. Same goes for movies and music if you ask me. And it's not just the Game Awards, but any talk about Game of the Year is arbitrary at best. It really doesn't mean anything other than cataloging what was most popular and released during this calendar year. Or in the case of the Game Awards, games that released before late November. And if that's what this is all about, well, have fun, I guess. The fact that they do the show before December 25th tells you everything about the priorities here. If they cared about it actually involving all the games released in 2025, they'd do the show in January, but then they'd miss out on our mindless consumer season, and we can't have that. Thing is, if you're decently well informed about games, you already know what was popular this year, and you probably know about Metacritic. And what do you know? The games up for Game of the Year at the Game Awards are all in the top 14 on Metacritic for 2025. The rest of the top 14 is full of remasters and niche titles. So what does anyone need the Game Awards for, and why, as someone who watches gaming content on YouTube, should you care? Well, unless you have bets out on Polymarket, you shouldn't. Here, I'll help you out. If you like action roguelikes, play Hades 2. RPGs, play Expedition 33 or Kingdom Come, depending on your taste. 2D search action Metroidvania Souls-likes, there's Silksong. Colorful action platformer, you have DK Bonanza, and for cinematic adventure with some batshit crazy stuff, try Death Stranding 2. Which one should win Game of the Year, considering these games have little in common besides all being released in 2025? Your enjoyment will come down to personal taste, but some people just want to see them fight. Game versus game. My favorite game is better than your favorite game, or something like that. What happens if nothing all that noteworthy releases in a year? Yeah, that's probably unlikely to happen, but we have to choose something, so I guess a mediocre game would, in theory, become Game of the Year, standing among the best from other years. And since games that get nominated correlate closely with their Metacritic score, let's talk about that Metroid Prime 4 score while we're here and the bizarre world of aging game critics. Back in my day, Metroid didn't tell you you had to shoot every wall and run back and forth without a clue. What do you know, times change. Games can't be reviewed in a vacuum. Everyone giving a game a score is inevitably comparing the game they're currently reviewing to the scores of games that came before it. So in the case of Prime 4, if you enjoyed it less than Prime 1 18 years ago, you can't give it a 9. It's gotta be an 8 or lower. You enjoyed it less? It has to score less. That says little about the game though. It tells you more about the reviewer. It tells you their age, experience, and their expectations. Every review comes with bias, which should be obvious to the reader, but most people aren't reading reviews. They're looking at scores. So is Metroid Prime 4 a 10 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10? Well, that depends on if you're Dan Reichert or Andy Robinson, and it will depend on who you are. That said, game reviews are important. Games are expensive. Knowing which reviewers you trust with gaming tastes similar to yours, that can help you know where to focus your attention and where to spend your time and money. If you want to get the most out of gaming, read reviews for games you've liked to play in the past. Find positive old reviews of games you've liked and find out what those reviewers are playing today. Then just ignore scores and the discourse around Metacritic and Game Awards, because that isn't going to tell you what you need to know about games you'd actually like to play. It doesn't matter how highly rated a turn-based RPG is, 9 times out of 10, I'm just not going to enjoy it as much as jumping around in Mario 64. That's my bias, that's my age, and that's just my preference. We'd all be better off if review scores stopped being the way we talk about games, period. A score is attached to a reviewer, not to a review, not to a game, as counterintuitive as that sounds. If I was in charge of reviewing RPGs, I'd give most of them terrible scores, and I'll have helped no one except those that share my taste in games. But I'd influence the Metacritic score, assuming I had the clout, which I don't yet. And then there are the score systems themselves. Some outlets use a 10, 20, or even a 100-point scale, and some use a star scale, with the max being 5 with no half stars given. A game in that scale is either 100, 80, or 60. Or 40 or 20 if they're really bad, I guess. 3 out of 5 stars doesn't sound too bad, but it's a 60%. That's a long way from 90. VGC, for example, gave both Metroid Prime 4 and Dragon Drive a 60. That's 3 out of 5. Sure, different reviewers, different audiences, entirely different expectations and experiences, yes, but they got the same score. Does that suggest they are the same value? Same quality? No. so why bother with the score at all? Now, I use the website Backlog to track the games I play and write mini reviews, and it uses a 5-star system, including half stars. I use that system the same way I used to rate songs in my iTunes library. 5 stars is a favorite I could almost always go back to. 4 stars is something I like a lot, but I'm not always in the mood for. 3 stars is alright, it has its moments. 2 stars is rarely enjoyable, but it's at least playable. And 1 star meant there was something wrong with the MP3. If I was to rate a game 1 star, it would mean that game wasn't made for me at all, so I just don't do it. But my review system, like anyone's, tells you about me as a reviewer in relation to a game. It's inseparable. Review score and reviewer are a package, and one man's trash is another's treasure. So as we go into Game of the Year season, try to avoid the headlines and really listen to or read about the choices the judges are making. These aren't discussions about games. These are discussions about the feelings people had while playing games. They are rating their feelings, their experiences. They are comparing how they felt playing one game over another. And it just says so little about the games and so much about the reviewer. It tells you about who they are and what their life was like during their time with a game. So many external factors can go into how we absorb and interpret entertainment, both in the present and in the past. We carry all that baggage with us into every critique, and it seems for some people, all it amounts to is a meaningless number. Anyway, this was just some stuff I've been thinking about a lot lately. I definitely listen to too many podcasts about games, and it's just mind-numbing how much emphasis is put on Game of the Year. Pundits put themselves through such agony playing all these games they missed over the past year or didn't put enough time into, just so they can talk about it for an afternoon in December. And I guess it's their job, and I suppose people like me are listening, so I suppose it's just all for entertainment purposes, but I'd much rather hear people talk about whatever it is they feel like playing, whether that's something from this year or something from 20 years ago. If I like the pundit, that's why I'm listening, for the pundit. I don't need to hear them talk about the miserable time they had with a game that doesn't fit their interests, and it's a shame we seem to expect people to have an opinion on everything. Some outlets focus more on simply what they played this year, regardless of when it released. And those conversations are a lot more interesting, because learning about what someone is really into is so much better than hearing about the same 6 games for a month straight. I think it's fun to reflect and discuss, and December is as good a time as any to do that, I guess, but keep it real, you know? My game of the year, unless I get around to playing something in the next month that tops it, which I very much doubt, is the same as it was in 2023, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The most I've used my Switch 2 for, so far, is to start a fresh file in Tears and fully explore the sky and depths. I didn't even finish the file. I just had a ton of fun fully mapping out those areas, and it's hard to overstate how much nicer it is on the Switch 2 over the original. I'm glad I sort of accidentally saved so much of that game from when I first played it in 2023. Now, if I'm picking a current favorite of games released in 2025, I think it's Elden Ring Night Rain, but DK Bonanza is close behind and could overtake it in the future. Then again, I've only played 4 games released in 2025, so I expect my favorites from this year will change eventually. Hell, maybe Metroid Prime 4 will become my game of the year for 2025. But Night Rain has just been a ton of fun, even though I've only played it a handful of times. Maybe somewhere between 15 and 20 hours total. My 2 friends and I have muddled our way through a few bosses, and what makes the game great for me is being able to play it with those friends. We have only a single night each week to play games together. It makes me want to try a co-op mod for Elden Ring proper, and play it the whole way through with one of those friends, cause that friend actually hasn't even played the main Elden Ring game. They've only played Night Rain, which is crazy. But yeah, so clearly I'm not an authority when it comes to 2025 and video games. I just don't have the time. But I'll get around to all the best stuff released this year, eventually. Anyway, thanks for listening. See you again soon.